Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? It's your man, damednydc, host of the Two Mics Up podcast. Back again today, brand new Monday, brand new episode. And, today we're really talking about something that I think, is a first here. First of all, we're going up to Cleveland today, and we really rocking. It's our first time out in Cleveland with today's guest. But, we've really been kind of digging into some topics this season that I think really fly under the radar. A lot of us we really take for granted. And today's guest is really doing a lot of work in the greater Cleveland community, with our youth, our families, our living conditions, and just the environment as a whole. And sometimes, like I say, I know we're all dealing with the pandemic. We're dealing with a lot of things. Some of us have lost family and friends, but this is another thing that really impacts us, and it's really sometimes it's hidden and we really don't see its impact at first. It's really sometimes later on in the lives of our youth and those who are living in communities that may be age dated. Uh, Things have changed, and this woman that I'm about to bring to you all, she's really helping to change the narrative. And I'm going to go ahead and Kim, how you doing today, ladies and gentlemen? Say hello to Kimberly Forman. Uh, Kim, I'm really excited to have you here. So I'm going to take a minute because you really have an extensive background, and you're really doing so much. So please take a few minutes to kind of give us some history about who you are, your background, uh, and really how you got started in the greater Cleveland area with exactly what you're doing. I'm not gonna tell all this. I'm gonna let you talk. Spill the tea.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. It was a nice surprise to get the email. I've been working in the field for over 20 years. The organization I run is 40 years old, and
Wow.
I've been the director for probably going on 7 years now.
Oh wow.
But I started at Case Western Reserve University as a non-traditional student. I went to community college. I had my two young children when I was younger. And
Mm,
so when I decided to go to college, I decided to go to be a physician. So I
okay.
was at Case in a pre-med program as well as sociology major.
Hmm.
And by the time I graduated in 2001, I decided not to pursue medical school because I had two young children and, I knew what it took to go to med school. But what happened is I ended up at Environmental Health Watch while I was a student at Case, looking at AmeriCorps programs. That it was
Hmm.
the first cohort of HEAL Corps, which was focused on public health. So, as a non-traditional student, a former director liked the fact that I was older. He didn't like to deal with young people. Yeah. So I had some life experience. So I literally went there as a part-time health educator. And at that time, EHW is a highly technical nonprofit organization, but had been around for 15 years at that time or so. So
Hmm.
then I started there as a health educator. And as I built the understanding of hazards in homes, those things that impact their families' health, going in the homes, talking to women, I found that a lot of the people I visited were single mothers like I was
Mm.
and didn't know the impact of lead poisoning or asthma on their children or suffering those impacts with taking off work, children missing school, children ended up in the hospital,
Wow.
and the situation with lead poison, generations of families being poisoned in the same house.
Mm.
And as I learned that, then I started to actually come over to your side of town to DC, Baltimore, working on national projects.
Hmm.
And that's when I started to look at the community as a whole,
Right.
knowing that what we were doing was great, but it was research based or it was one family at a time.
Right.
And the impact of lead or the impact of asthma was broader than that. When you look at
Mm.
the data and the statistics of what lead poison and learn about what lead poison does to children's brains,
Mm.
and then we're talking about the school system and how children can't pass tests, they can't
Mm.
read. And you look at a whole community, and one out of 3 or 4 children are being poisoned before they hit elementary school.
Wow.
So, with that, and going across the country, doing national projects, meeting people across the country who are working on these issues,
Mm-hmm.
really helped me understand and elevate and evolve the work I was doing. And so,
Wow.
from that perspective, I started to launch my own. It's called Neighborhood Leadership for Environmental Health.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pilot. It was a project from that was funded by Environmental Protection Agency
Wow.
and worked with National Centers for Healthy Homes, and that's where I learned about in communities of color, talking about sustainability, talking about
Mm.
environment, talking
Mm-hmm.
about broader things that impact us, our health, and now I've expanded to talk about economic justice, right?
Wow.
So it's always evolving, but really that national work, going to conferences, meeting people,
Mm-hmm.
networking with people across the country, as well as launching a neighborhood leadership for environmental health, really opened my eyes and gave me an opportunity to build something
Mm-hmm.
from scratch and
Right.
see the end results. And I'm still literally working with people from 2009
That's awesome. That
to today.
that's really awesome. And I mean, I think, when I hear you talk, because I think a lot of us, and even when we were talking about it here internally, um, you said some really great things because starting out in your area, or in Cleveland where you are, and the things that you're involved with, it wasn't until it sounds like, when, like you said, you got into a more of a national thing where this just not only impacts your neighborhood, this is a national issue that I think none of us really pay attention to as much anymore. And I do want to ask you, like, when you talk about nationally, it really impacts both, when you look at the national numbers, not just the inner city numbers, but this impacts both black and white.
It's
Or,
about housing.
right, right, and that's where, because the housing issues, codes have changed, where asbestos based paint and lead paints, and what changes have you seen or have been made, um, from your view and what you've done over the years, like how has the improvement taken place? 'Cause I think a lot of us don't even really understand that aspect of just the little small steps that have been made, like you said, in the 15 to 20 years that you've been involved.
hmm So, Environmental Health Watch in Cleveland, we've pushed this healthy homes narrative, right? We've
Mm-hmm.
impacted policy because we work on advocacy, research, direct service, training, and education, right?
Right.
That's how we fulfill our mission
Mm-hmm.
around healthy homes and sustainable communities. But the fact is that over the decades, we've had a thriving community that had a lot of data.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of people come to the table, but we didn't have the funder. We didn't have the political will
Mm.
to sustain the work.
Mm-hmm.
So there are models across the country, especially in Rochester,
Mm-hmm.
that has reduced lead poison rates down to 80% through their
Wow.
proactive approach and legislation.
Wow.
But it's what we've done as we have a Cleveland approach
Mm-hmm.
just for lead right now because that was the appetite. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't for the broader healthy homes, which I'll push. But
Right.
right now, we set up in Cleveland infrastructure with the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition of over 500 members. I run the Lead Safe Resource Center where we
Mm-hmm.
have community engaged. We have people on the street every day building community. We have a tenant landlord liaison to help the
Okay.
landlords comply with a new lead safe
Okay.
mandate for landlords. Lead safe, not lead
Mm.
free.
Right. I understand.
we have we have a call center, and I built a workforce development program that's short turnaround so people could get to work. There's a
Mm.
lot of details in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
On the other side, we also have loan and grant products for landlords.
Okay.
We have a lot of low income landlords in our city The issue with lead and housing and hazards is about older housing stock.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you live in a city, East Coast city, with a lot of older housing stock, that's where the issues come in. And then we have renters in
Right.
Cleveland. Half our people rent. Cleveland is usually 4 times the national average with lead poisoning.
Wow.
One out of every 4 or 5 children in some communities, 1 out of 3 or 4 are poisoned, right?
Wow.
So in specific neighborhoods, and that's where that targeting focus. But
Mm-hmm.
we would what we have been doing is working on
Mm-hmm.
systems change, working with the city, working with building and housing, working with our legislators, working with other nonprofits, working with banks,
Mm-hmm.
working with foundations. So it's a public-private partnership
Mm-hmm.
for the coalition. And what I just mentioned to you was a whole new system, not just the legislation that landlords have to submit a lead safe levels to building a house and to receive a certificate.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also the resource center system. There's the
Okay.
loans and grants system. All right. There's all this marketing and communication to make sure we're talking to people,
Mm.
talking to landlords, talking to tenants, one-on-one education, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that only happened because the funders decided to all come together
Right.
and make a decision about funding the work.
Mm.
Also, the influencing. I've sat in many council sessions. Before the coalition, I was doing a national project working on proactive inspections and the rental registry, enforcing the rental registry that we already had.
Right.
So a lot of these pieces and parts, right, came together over time. And in 2006, 7,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cleveland, we had a Healthy House Advisory Council, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not one funder, but we had people at the table, and we pushed to make the action level for lead to be 5 instead of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And the CDC nationally followed our model.
Oh wow.
Right. So
Oh wow.
now that the action level is 5 for the country,
Mm-hmm.
that started right in Cleveland and
Okay.
Cuyahoga County. So
Okay.
there's been, successes,
Mm-hmm.
but to scale or systematically, no.
No. No. I
And other cities have been able to do this,
mm-hmm.
specifically Rochester, which we took time to go see Rochester, talk to Rochester. Rochester supports us, and there's
Mm.
a few other models that we looked at in similar cities. And now other cities are trying to replicate
Okay.
what we're doing.
And that's really what I wanted to ask next thing because, again, everything here we know is in baby steps, but how soon or how far off do you see? Because like I love hearing that you're saying other cities now are replicating, what you've done there, but how far off do you think we are becoming, one national scale, one national model, one that we can all follow and implement so that we can really get these changes in place because our kids, you said some really important things. Our kids are suffering, but our kids become our future. They become our
Mhm.
next generation, and they're being poisoned over and over and over again and for extended periods of time. And we really need some type of national scale to really help try to make that turn and stem that tide. And how far off do you think or feel maybe we are from really getting some type of national model?
So through our coalition structure, we have multiple committees,
Okay.
which were open to anybody to participate as we crafted the uh, the legislation, which
Mm-hmm.
was sent over to council. They had to adopt it, but we had suggestions. Right, I'm
Okay.
losing my thought about what technical language.
Okay.
We had a resource committee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the resource committee is fundraising, trying to get $99 million over 5 years. Probably it's 3 more years now. We're at half of that. We're at 40, I think $45 million.
Mm.
But we also are working with Senator Sherrod Brown, and federally trying to get a federal fund, $100 million federal fund,
Okay.
so that other cities could create a loan fund like we have set up in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
So our work as far as advocating and trying to build is national.
Mm-hmm.
Our resource committee, and I'm part of some of those conversations and meetings to talk about how we spend the money, what
Mm-hmm.
happens on the ground, the
Mm-hmm.
execution of the system. So we are working with national legislators to create a fund for the whole nation.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really wish you all the best in pushing that forward and pioneering that, because I really think, like I said, this is a topic that flies under the radar now with so many other things that we're obviously dealing with. Nobody thought we'd be dealing with the pandemic right now and all of these other, we have so much going on. But I really felt that this was important to talk about. And if I could, Kimberly, let me take a moment then. Let's talk about Kimberly Foreman specifically then. You know,
Okay.
educate us about more about EHW, but really your role. Because, like I say, you kind of started out in different capacities, but where you are today in your role, and what impact and how do you try to use your position to continue to push the agenda for EHW?
So, Environmental Health Watch, I said we have two sides that we do right now. We're actually in a process of another strategic plan of operations, but I'm the executive director of Environmental Health Watch.
Okay.
And so we also have a sustainable communities piece.
Mm,
And I look at our sustainable communities piece as responding to community need and
mm,
also working in the center of the city and communities of color to
mm,
talk about to do youth programming, for example. We did um, Youth Farmers Leadership Program. I work with a farm in the center of the city, an urban farm called Ridall Green Partnership, and they farm in Israel and in
oh
Belize
wow.
and in Cleveland. They have all kind of folks, celebrities, all kind of folks
Okay.
come to the farm,
Okay.
and so we built this relationship because I've been knowing what the owner passed, the person who set it up, Damien Forche, but I've been knowing him since high school. And
Okay.
he had a commitment because he worked in public housing doing pest control. That's where the Ridall was.
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
So
okay. Got it.
we
Mm,
partnered for the last 10 years, and they're showing a sustainable model around how to farm year round. I matched that up with programming for youth. I
mm,
matched it up with bringing residents together to help formulate things that they want to develop in their neighborhoods.
mm,
So Environmental Health Watch does lead a lot of multi-sector collaborative efforts, but our focus has been people-centered development. So that means that the people in the community have a say. They sit at the table. I'm working through this stuff, right? It's not cookie cutter
mm-hmm.
because no community is cookie cutter.
That's right.
But we have a focus, and our framing is environmental justice and health equity. And
Mm,
we've been working on equity forever. Now it's a new buzzword, but we've been committed to bringing community together
mm,
along with decision makers, and we build together. So currently, through that neighborhood leadership for environmental health process I talked to you about, it was a
mm-hmm.
process of distilling some information,
Right.
hearing back from community about what they felt like their issues were,
Mm,
prioritizing those issues, and then having them develop solutions.
mm-hmm.
So out of that process came a lot of leaders, a roadmap for me about
Mm.
how to engage community. So I did vegan cooking classes and all
Oh
that
wow.
in 2011 before it became popular.
Oh wow.
We had series of that. The Youth Farmers Leadership I told you about. We have conferences called Race, Food, and Justice with Ridall and Case Western Reserve, and we brought all these national leaders, people of color, to talk about food and food justice and cooperatives and climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because a lot of times, what I started to see is when I sat in a room people, we had a sustainable 2019 initiative that started in maybe 2000 and same time 2009 when I
Oh,
started my process.
okay.
No people of color were in the room,
Oh
right?
wow.
And I'm like, well, who's defining sustainability?
Mm-hmm.
Us for ourselves, we talk about it different.
Right. True.
We've been recycling clothes and
Right.
recycling stuff, and
Right.
it's just the way we discuss it.
Right.
But when you look at the data, we're the ones who are most impacted by these things. But we
Mm-hmm.
use less energy, less than
Right, right,
anybody else.
right.
so
That's
we
so true.
so we bear the brunt of it. So now we have to continue to talk to community about
Mm,
their priorities and then support them. So
mm-hmm.
that's what I've been spending my time doing over the last few years, is really cultivating those relationships,
Right.
shifting the way we do work, and hopefully influencing how others do work, instead of talking about community, talking about the data,
Mm-hmm.
what's wrong in this poor black
Yeah,
neighborhood.
yeah,
We gonna cut that,
yeah, yeah.
because there's a lot of value in the communities and a lot of expertise in the communities.
Oh,
The
speak on it.
language they use is not what you use,
Exactly.
and their solutions are based on, I think, intersectionality that we start to talk about,
Yeah.
and root causes and systems change work. So part of what I've been really committing to do is learning, applying, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not perfect,
No,
but
no.
I've been able to successfully do some things. And so now people want to hear what I got to say about it, or I'm still, sometimes you're still saying the same thing over and over, because you look around some of these tables and there's nobody from the impacted community that you're
Right,
trying to help.
right,
Help.
right.
But while I started literally doing a policy and advocacy courses for leaders in communities, so I had handpicked leaders that I met that are doing work in their communities for free, they're not getting paid,
Mm-hmm.
and started to do policy and advocacy classes, because I think at the crux of everything, every issue, is decision making.
Yeah,
How do you advocate for
yeah.
yourself? What's the structure, and how do you influence the people that can make a difference in
Mm-hmm.
your neighborhood,
Yeah.
instead of just picking the issues apart? Because then all we doing is siloing the issues,
Exactly.
and it's the same
Same.
process.
It's the
It's
same
a
process.
different issue.
Yeah. Same
so
process.
so that's kind of, for me, I felt I was a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that the people didn't have enough information, and I was tapped into these networks, and
Right.
I started to build
Eh,
collaborations,
eh,
partnerships, and I feel like I'm a bridge to that.
I love how you just said that because I think a lot of times we, and I speak for myself, being of an older age. Sometimes we don't realize. See, our youth talk differently than we did,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had the pleasure and opportunity. You gain certain knowledge, you understand processes of a system and how the system is geared and set up. But I love what you said, being a bridge, and you're actually reaching not only back, but you're reaching out into the community, and you're taking on leaders of today, young men and women who are actually the eyes, the ears, the pulse of what really is going on in the community,
Mm-hmm.
and you're working with them to help educate them on how you can take what they're saying and look, this is what I'm going to say for you, but I need you to watch and learn,
Yes.
because they really have to take the baton from you,
Mm-hmm.
and all the work that you're doing, and the reason why I'm expressing this for anyone that's listening today, and you should really watch and pay attention and listen to what this woman is saying, because this is a model of not just what she's doing with EHW. This is really any process or any system that you want to change in America. It starts with your inner city. It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be the environment. It could be your neighborhood community watch. It could be your town home community. Whatever it is that you're looking to influence and change. These are the processes that we need to take. And I'm so glad to have Kim on. And really, you said that so eloquently.
I'm
Um,
trying to work on my speech.
no, but it was very eloquent, and I just want people to hear that because it takes it takes a village,
Mm-hmm.
and I say that because some of us old folks have to learn how to get out of the way. But there's a way that you can still participate because there's value in the things that we've gone through. But they have the technology today, they
Mm-hmm.
have the motivation, they have. I don't want to because aggression. When I say aggression, people think aggression is bad.
It's just assertiveness. You have to,
Hey,
90% of the work, what I tell people is 90% of the work is follow up.
mm-hmm.
And then if you say you're going to do something, you need to do your
Your whole
best to
bastard.
do what you
Yep.
say you're going to do,
Yep.
or shut up.
Yep.
I'm behind the scenes, right? I work behind the scenes because it's not enough to sit out front and to get attention and
Okay.
to just talk and yell, and
Mm-hmm.
then you got to sit down and do the work. It's a longer term process.
Yep.
It's patience, it's diligence, it's knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know. If I don't know, I ain't gonna act like I know.
Okay.
And then and so part of the environmental justice that people leave out when we talk about environmental justice, most time people talking about the external environment.
Mm-hmm.
Environmental justice is people where they live
Live.
making decisions about what happens where
Yes,
they
indeed.
live. And
Yes,
I
indeed.
and I always say that when I have these talks about what environmental justice is,
Mm-hmm.
and don't leave a piece out of it that has to do with equity and really giving a power, shifting that
Yeah.
power
Yeah.
and resources.
Yeah.
So in a resource center, for example, there's a concept that was created because all of this is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a concept of what the my partners wanted it to kind of be. I
Right.
had to dig into the details of how I was going to execute and build what I thought needed to be built.
Mm-hmm.
So all of my people are brown and black people in my organization, on purpose too, because the people in our action team, I was working with them before I had the resource center, and
Gotcha.
I brought that process of policy and advocacy and brought them into the resource center because they are the people in the community that's talking to their
Yeah.
members,
Yeah.
but they get paid a living wage. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of leadership in communities get used.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, we gonna show how you actually give people a position
Yep.
and
Yep.
have some power in your infrastructure in your organization versus using them, giving them a stipend. Of course, stipends have to be used sometime to get. I've
Yeah.
done it, but to what end?
Right.
Is it just to give them a stipend for 6 months, take some pictures so you could look like you doing
We're
more
something
than
more
what
than
you're
what you're
doing?
doing. Yeah.
We're not doing that. We gonna
Mhm.
have a real job, but also I have expectations.
Right.
They're not all professionals, so that's challenging too.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the ones impacted. They deserve a chance to show that they can evolve
Of
and
course.
build
Of
capacity
course.
to help run something.
Of course.
And I pick these different characters that people look over or like, they scared of them.
Yeah. Yeah. But they bring something value. They
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 bring
have value,
that
something
value.
value. I mean,
And
that's what I question. Mm-hmm.
how they want to see something done, I try to continue to process that.
Right.
A community engagement is not a meeting and then say you got all the answers. You always got to build relationships,
Right.
and I continue that. I do right now, in one neighborhood where it's mostly public housing, where the farm sits. I'm working on a cooperative grocery store, trying
Mm-hmm.
to work on a cooperative grocery store, which is an ownership
Right.
economic justice model. I also do a big festival called Fresh Fest Cleveland,
Mm-hmm.
and I bring in old school DJs. We had Biz Markie the first year, we had
Nice.
Spinderella just past year, and so with that process is supporting Black and Brown artists, entrepreneurs, and we have such a diverse crowd. We had like 6,000 the first year,
Wow.
7,000 the next year,
Nice.
and so what we do is people of color, but everybody participates and it's scaled up. And the focus is arts and culture
Wow.
in a community that has gang violence and people we there to 9, 10 o'clock. People
Mhm.
like didn't think I could do it.
Right.
The
Right.
narrative is like, oh, it's the worst neighborhood, right? So it's like a demonstration that we can have something to scale that supports arts and culture
Right.
that look different than other community neighborhood festivals. We bring in national artists, right? And
Mm-hmm.
let everybody breathe for a day. And
Wow. Right.
it's,
Literally.
it's also putting money in the pockets of artists and entrepreneurs that don't get a chance to get into a festival of scale because they charge too much,
Wow.
right? So I've been kind of doing that for the last couple of years as like a placemaking piece, and that came about from a national project I was working on called with Kresge Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
around food, arts, and culture and
That's
our
awesome.
youth, right? They made juice products, so they're building their business around that. We had youth make their own music, write their own music, write their own poetry, perform.
Wow.
And so this is like a culmination of
That's
that couple of 4 years of work.
That's awesome, man. And look, ladies and gentlemen, anything is possible when you put your mind to it. In the community, positive impact and change is always there. And on that note, we're going to take a small pause for the cause. We're going to step away. I want to go ahead and shout out our sponsors. So we'll be right back after the break. All right, everybody, we're back. If you just joining today's conversation, you want to go back to the beginning. If you're listening, to you live streaming, or you watching this live on YouTube, go back to the beginning. You missed the first part of it. There was some great conversation going on, with today's guest, Kimberly Forman, of Environmental Health Watch coming out of the greater Cleveland area. She's doing some amazing work. Um, and with some of the things that we talked about, Kim, we talked about some of the services and activities that you had going on, with EHW. But I have to ask, if you were to take if you had the ability to look 5 years into the future, and where do you see, yourself and EHW, and how much more of an impact or positive impact do you see uh 5 years from now with the work that you're doing there?
So before COVID, we
Mhm.
started to craft our Healthy Homes Assessment Service, our model, right, as a business, fee for service.
Mhm.
So right now we have a pilot that we just finished with United Healthcare Managed Care Organization.
Okay.
So the goal is to scale that up because we have to find sustainable income for the
Mhm.
organization. And
Mhm.
that started with the previous director, started the conversation with managed care because when we go out and address environmental hazards in housing for
Mhm.
their patients,
Mhm.
we reduce asthma exacerbations. We could reduce the lead hazards in the home. And
Wow.
this is a moderate, low level interventions.
Mhm.
Part of our history is doing these research projects to show low cost interventions
Mhm.
for housing that actually make the impact. And so, with that approach, we have reduced asthma exacerbations by like 50%. So,
Wow.
we have a history of doing this work with university partners. So, now we're trying to scale up
Mhm.
to work with managed care so we have a sustainable source of income for the organization,
Mhm.
hire some more folks in to do the assessments and mitigations. We want to look at development projects potentially. I will have a full executive team. I'm moving on hiring right now
Okay. That's.
to build the executive team, right?
Mhm.
So that people, I have a senior director now. I'm hiring a program director and
Nice.
probably communications marketing right now, a contractor
Mhm.
and development contract consultant, but hopefully those could be actual positions at the organization
Mhm.
and a policy person, right? So that we can go back to doing the research. Our capacity is better, is scaled up because of the resource center and the hiring I was able to do. Because
Mhm.
I'm gonna tell you right now, when I became a director, my former director had things set up. Then we had a director come in for 2 years and like, so I
Just
had received the organization kind of in a bit of a mess
mess. Yeah.
financially.
Mhm.
So y'all don't understand. What I've been doing for 6 years is like rebuilding, restructuring, working with the board. I'll have in 5 years we'll have a working board
Nice,
for
nice.
the organization that we're trying to build and create.
Mm,
We have a great reputation,
mm,
ESW. Like we have a great history. So I've built on that, and then the things I've been able to do, we want to execute. We want to scale up that sustainable communities effort. We
mm-hmm.
want to see the Fresh Fest become bigger and grander, right?
Right.
We have festivals, and Cleveland is a super festival city, right? We have a winter festival
Mm-hmm.
in our city that's 10,000 people. Like I'm trying
Wow.
to get to that.
Right.
Um, and then I might be doing my own entrepreneurial stuff
Okay.
as
Okay.
Kim Foreman,
Okay.
but I really want to build that executive team and translate the things, my approach to work into the
Mm-hmm.
organization, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just, and of course, everything I'm talking about, everything I'm doing, it takes a team and
Yeah.
collaboration.
Of
So
course. Of
I would
course.
like to build teams, and we do multi sector as far as intergenerational,
Okay.
right? We try to be intentional about that.
Mm-hmm.
So continue the leadership and continue to evolve as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
but also make sure that we build the team that can run the
They can run
organization.
an organization. That no, that makes all the sense in the world, and I mean, I love to hear that because, uh, unfortunately, you kind of came in and had to kind of rebuild from the ground up. But it sounds though, from what we've read and seen, we see Kim in the work. We see, your heart, your soul, everything that you pour into it does come out, and it does come across, in the things that we've seen and the things that we've read about the organization. And I do want to ask too. You talked about several resources and things like that. Um, but are there any other new things that maybe people in the greater community can expect to see on the horizon? Or if not, um, how can they help get involved in what you're doing in the community? Because I think that's really important too. Because you talked about both ends about where you're going, but there's also a need for
Mhm.
help and assistance too to continue your growth. So, what can people do to help further assist you?
Well, I think what's important is if you find that you want to support this nonprofit, you could go to Network for Good. You could go to our website and actually support us and donate. We have to build our donor base. So
Hmm.
that's one way you could support the organization. Through the Let's Say Cleveland Coalition, you become a member of the coalition. You just sign up on letsaycle.org.
Hmm.
I'm always looking for mentors. It's I'm looking for executive leadership training and things like that. And so for ESW, if you like our work, talk about us, right? Bring
Hmm.
people towards us because that's like you are like, how did you get my name? Like I didn't even know how you
Yeah.
found me, and
Yes.
so that
I
was
we
nice.
had that conversation with my, so my wife handles a lot of
Yes.
our correspondence, and so usually, and I think I've said this before on the show, you Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, we usually have our team meetings, internal meetings, and we sit down and we just throw out topics. And this just kind of came up through things we had seen, a couple of commercials, kind of healthcare and things. So we're like, okay, well, we hadn't really got into a healthcare kind of thing such as this. And we got into housing and talking about housing. And then my wife, was like, Damon, hey, you remember, the such and such with lead? And I was like, oh, yeah. But really didn't really have anywhere to go. So we started digging and digging in. And one of the first names that popped up was yours.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, then we started looking, oh, Cleveland. Well, hey, we haven't done a show with anybody in Cleveland yet. Well, let's
Hey.
start digging more. So hey, so right, so everything started, and here we are today having you on, and talking about, this topic. And I do want to ask because for me, and this is kind of a personal question, how how do we really change the narrative and stop our children from being poisoned moving forward? Because I think if someone was just tuning in today and really knew nothing other than that, but was really concerned, so let's say I
Mhm.
live in an older home, um, and I'm not really sure what type of paint is in my home or any of that thing. So how would someone, let's just say, make that first initial step? Like, what would be the first initial step to kind of get the ball rolling if you want to
Mhm.
find out more about your living conditions, um, so that hopefully that you and your children are no longer or not even being exposed to lead poisoning.
hmm So one thing is to for parents is one, get your children tested.
Mm-hmm.
We suggest twice a year, one in the summer, to see what's going on with your child because you can't see it. You don't know if
Mm-hmm.
they're poisoned. Sometimes they'll display things, sometimes they won't, and you don't even know to get your child. I didn't know to even get my kids tested for
Wow.
lead.
Right. Right.
Then look around your property. Are you a renter? Are you a homeowner?
Mm-hmm.
If you have chipping and peeling paint, you want to make sure it's intact. You can have lead paint in your house. If it's
Mm-hmm.
intact, it's not a hazard.
Okay.
Once it's chipping and peeling, it's a hazard. Do you have exposed soil outside? That's a potential lead hazard.
Hmm.
It's like you can assume it's lead, right? If you live in a house built before 1978, you can assume there's lead. You clean up the dust on the window wells and seals, but you also should do it lead safe. Don't go dry scraping, sanding, blasting paint,
Hmm.
and you could end up causing more of a problem.
Right.
There are tools on our website, HUD website, about cleaning, environmental cleaning,
Mm-hmm.
because lead is invisible. It is in your floors, on your window sills, on your horizontal surfaces. You could clean it up. It's just showing you how to do it so that you don't just continue to contaminate and spread it. And you can live in a house with lead, live lead safe. You do
Hmm.
not have to get poisoned. Our focus with the coalition and with EHW has always been a preventative approach
Mm-hmm.
because it's cheaper. You focus on the prevention part, and you
Mm-hmm.
won't have to deal with after. Because once a child gets poisoned, your city is involved, your health department is involved.
Mm-hmm.
There's an order placed on the property. There's abatement that has to get done, which
Right.
is more costly. So, if we can work on nutrition for our children, making sure that, because if they're taking more lead if they don't have iron and calcium in their bodies.
Mm. Got
So
it.
there's some real simple practical steps parents can take to protect their children.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a renter, then the landlord has a responsibility too.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm a homeowner, I can't contaminate the neighborhood because I'm just gonna go rogue and start blasting paint chips all over the place, right?
Right. Right.
Because you
Right.
could contaminate the next door neighbor or whatever. So EPA has guidelines for working lead safe. There's a class that our landlords take. In
Mm-hmm.
order to work on your property as a landlord, you have to take what's called renovation, repair, and painting class through EPA. We
Mm-hmm.
offer those for free at the Resource Center, and you can find them across the country through EPA.
Mm-hmm.
Take that class for landlords and homeowners, renters. You need to identify what the issues are. And we have landlord tenant law in Ohio. Some people
Mm-hmm.
have it, some don't.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on where you live, how you
Mm-hmm.
address hazards in your home with your landlord.
Right.
But you have to connect with an organization that might know this stuff. They can
Mm-hmm.
help you deal with your landlord if
Mm-hmm.
you need to on that level,
Right.
but just know what you should be looking for as a parent or a tenant
Uh,
once things are getting fixed, that they don't turn
I
around
look
and
again.
contaminate.
I just learned a whole lot in the last 3 minutes because again, these I don't want to say these are common sense things, but these are things
Mhm,
that we overlook and we really take for
mhm.
granted. Even when you have professionals come in, working on your home, you assume is a bad word, but you want to assume that they know what,
And they don't.
and they don't, right? And so, you're right. And I'm just sitting here in my mind. I'm like, oh, geez, like really, like I'm not again because I've watched it. Like
Mhm,
I didn't even think about that. So I thank you for taking the time to share, that because that's really important. So
mhm.
like I said, anybody listening, you know, play it back a couple of times, take some notes, write it down, and really get on board. If you're really concerned about your situation, your home, even if you think that you are, or if you never thought about it before, if you have young kids, like Kim said, go get them tested, go get them looked at,
Yeah.
just out of precaution. it's
And
better to
we
be.
say up to the age of 6, right?
Okay.
Once they start school, unless you have are redoing your whole house or something, and you think they've been exposed by some activity,
Right.
pretty much the behaviors crawling on the floor. You need to wash your children's toys, hand to mouth activity. Don't
Mm.
let them, touch and put their hands in their mouth.
Right.
Washing their hands is important, right?
Right.
Up until the age of 6, because they no longer have those behaviors. So some
Hmm.
people say, "Oh my God, I got to get my chest tested," and they 15. I
Yeah.
mean, but
Yeah.
the body holds onto lead in the bone. So that
Uh.
means that if I was a child and I was poisoned and I'm pregnant, I
Yeah.
could leach that lead back into my bloodstream. So that is
Wow.
something that
Wow.
can happen if somebody breaks a bone or they have osteoporosis or whatever, that lead could leach back out into the
Oh
body
wow.
because it's stored in the bone. So there's a body burden of lead that we talk about. You can't
Wow.
just get rid of it. You can't take a pill.
Right.
But it does, just because someone's poisoned doesn't mean they're gonna have a horrible life.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're not gonna be able to read. But
Hmm.
people need to be aware
Yes.
of
Yeah. No,
what
I
it
do.
could what the potential damage
No,
could
I
be.
agree with that. I mean, look, again, education is knowledge, people, and knowledge is power. So, with that being said, Kim, as we get ready to close out on a phenomenal episode, phenomenal conversation with you, um, what is next? What is like really next on your plate with EHW? And
Mhm.
what can we expect to see, and what should we be looking for in the community from you in EHW?
Well, definitely, I think with our communications piece, we got to get that together.
Okay.
Because I'm just in a different space, so I'm learning how to do what I need to do over here. But I was a programmatic person, right?
Right.
So I love that. I love being in touch with people. But I think for us, it's about scale. It's
Mm.
about looking at the systems change work so that we can have greater impact. So I want to get back to doing some research for the organization. We always had like research. My former director loved research, so we had a lot of that going on, the
Right. Right.
technical. So I want to get back to that. I got some ideas about what we want to research. EHW, working with funders, working with more national funders, getting a pot, fill the pot, so then we can start to execute on some ideas we have and push more stuff out,
Um,
um, as environmental health watch, because the resource center is a huge lift. It's a huge endeavor,
mm,
but we're like, okay, we I'm happy that we were able to show that we had the capacity to build a
dude.
whole resource center.
Yeah,
But
that's
we
dope.
also need to use that to leverage the EHW, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And sustain EHW, because as the money comes, they meet the goal of 99 million and people are in the system, that's probably going to shrink a little bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I'm working on EHW to make sure that we could scale up our approach, look
Mm.
at more community wide
Hmm.
efforts. And now I'm kind of looking at what the scale mean for our organization
Hmm.
and where do we want to make the greatest impact around people centered, like community development. What does
No.
that look like for us
Right.
versus just building up buildings or
Right.
looking at the built environment? That's not always the approach. It's the community development corporations, they do that.
Right.
But how are we really digging into building leadership,
Hmm.
sustaining that leadership, and then evolving that and elevating that as
Yeah.
we build more stuff in communities? Because stuff people come in, gentrification is something that's happening, but where do we kind of look at land trust or,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I'm
Right. No.
grappling
But
with
but
that now.
but it's great that you're working on that foresight, because things are always changing, forever changing, and you
Mhm.
have to try to stay in front of that curve. And I really enjoy just listening to you speak, because I can tell and I can see you have so many ideas and so many things that
It's a
you
mess.
you're no, but it's okay, because
Uh-huh.
although to you it may be a mess, it really
Mhm.
comes across as someone sincere about trying to create positive change. And that's
Mhm.
what our platform is really all about, trying to highlight individuals like yourself who are really trying to make something positive or leave a positive impact in our community. And that's what it's all about. It's really been our pleasure for you to be here and share your story with us today. It's been an
Thank
amazing conversation.
thank
So
you.
before we go, I want to allow you one last time to please share your social media information, your website information. So anybody watching or listening today, maybe you have questions, concerns, or
Hmm.
you may be interested in maybe helping Kim out.
Yeah.
Grab a pen, and want to let her go ahead and share this information before we go. Kim, would you
Okay.
mind?
Yes, so
Mm.
you can reach me directly at kim.foreman@ehw.org. You could go to our website, ehw.org. We have Twitter, which I'm kind of on. You can for Fresh Fest, we have freshfestcleveland.com. We have an Instagram for Fresh Fest. We have a Facebook for Fresh Fest, and then we have the Resource Center uh, that you can reach out to 601. I ain't even gonna try to get that off, but you could go to that website at let'ssaycle.org. Let'ssaycle.org. It's 601-833-5323. That's the Resource Center number.
Okay.
But call call me at 216-961-4646. That's the number to EHW, and we could connect you to where you need to go.
Mm.
So we are here. Just email me, or you can find us online and go to our Facebook page, EHW. We have a Facebook as well.
Okay, so for those of you who really like that information, we're going to go ahead and drop that information, here in the comments here of the show. So if you're watching, on YouTube, you'll be able to get that information down here at the bottom. And while you're watching, if you're new to Two Mics Up, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead over there and hit that little bell so you can be notified by all the newest content coming to you from Two Mics Up. And hey, while you at, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about the show, what you think about today's conversation. Positive, negative. I'm all here. I'm all about constructive criticism. I really appreciate anything that you have to say. Kim, has been another great conversation. I thank you again for taking time out today for sitting here and just chopping it up with me, talking about EHW and all the amazing work that you're doing. Continued success to you, sis. Uh,
Thank you.
we're big fans and followers. If there's anything that you're working on in the future,
Hmm.
if you want to drop us a line, let us know, send us some information. We'll do our best to go ahead and share with our listeners and our followers here on Two Mics Up.
Thank
Um,
you.
and hey, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, you can follow Two Mics Up online at www.twomicsup.com. You can also follow us across our social media, IG, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Two Mics Up. Stay tuned for this Thursday. We'll be back with another brand new live. We're just going to be chopping it up, man. I don't really know where we're going to go, but we're going to go somewhere Thursday nights. You know how we do. We just kick off our shoes, grab your favorite cocktail, sit back, and we're going to do this grown up style. Oh, and one other thing. For those of you, it's the holiday season, and, we're running this here. So if you are a poet, and if you think you got that verbal assassin type style to deliver poetry, verbally, Two Mics Up is coming January 2022 with a brand new Poets and Vibe online competition cash prize. You get a trophy, get you some Two Mics Up merch and all that good stuff. So stay tuned. I'm gonna run this real quick for you. All right. So if you know anybody that's a poet that can spit fire, they want to compete for a cash prize trophy and the title, being the virtual slam poets and vibe artist of Two Mics Up 2022, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and hit us up on our email, vp2micsup@gmail.com. And that's really all I got today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a blast. So, like we always do at this time, stay safe, stay blessed. Mike's out.